Hey, this is Tom Smithyman from Comic-Con.com. I'm here with Eric Nguyen and Scott Burman, the creative team behind the new limited series from Dark Horse Comics called White Savior. Now, both of these guys write the book, and Eric pulls double duty as the person who draws every panel as well as the main cover. Guys, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So White Savior hits your local comic book shop on January 18th, and you can find a very positive review in Comic-Con at comiccon.com. Just search, not coincidentally, for White Savior. So Scott and Eric, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what this book is about?
Eric, me and Eric always switch off back and forth. Should I give him the elevator pitch?
Yeah, go ahead, give him the elevator pitch, Scott.
The hardest part of this book is that I'm a loudmouth, talky guy, obnoxious, all of that stuff. And Eric is like the greatest human being ever, but he doesn't like gabbing like I do. So I'm going to give you the elevator pitch that I've given about 7 million times. But this time it's going to be 1,000 times better because this is for Comic-Con over here. So White Savior is a spoof of white savior movies where a white guy comes into an underrepresented village and miraculously saves everybody. In this case, it's the exact opposite. The white guy is an idiot, and the hero is an Asian guy who time travels to feudal Japan and has to convince everybody not to follow the white savior. Hope that didn't come off as too rehearsed.
Well, let's just call it well practiced.
All right, I'll go with that.
Okay, Eric, what's your spin on your own story?
Well, it's pretty simple. Do you see where we came up with this idea? White savior.
We don't have to ask who the hero in the writer's room is, do we?
The idiot and the not so much of an idiot.
I'm definitely the idiot of the two of us. So.
No, but we wanted to do something fun and something that wasn't so serious. And when we came up with the whole white savior thing, it was at the time when there was that movie with Matt Damon about what was it?
The Great Wall.
Yeah, The Great Wall, and how it was funny how the Great Wall was saved by this one, the white savior. And so we just thought we would just throw in that little, because actually I thought it was a kind of, I thought, what? That's my reaction with the whole thing. So, that's where it kind of came from. And so we kind of started with that and built on that. And Scott has so many kind of non-political jokes in there that I just thought was so funny that, we started working with that. And it became something that was, for me, I wanted to get something different from all the serious stuff that I was doing. And so, it was fun. It allowed me to go back to kind of a non-serious type of art form as well, if you've seen it. And so getting back to more of a kind of cartoony, kind of open line art type work that I tend to do when I first started with the whole comic business.
Makes sense. So if I'm thinking about the book, right, it's a spoof, a comedy. It's got a little family drama thrown in, arguably a little historical fiction for good measure, right? So when we think about labels like the ones that I just rattled off, how helpful or hurtful are they when you're first pitching a publisher, and two, after you successfully pitch that publisher, how do you use those labels or avoid those labels when you're trying to pitch it to readers?
That's a very, very good question. I'll start it off, Eric. So it's always interesting being the white guy pitching White Savior. Just before we sold it to Dark Horse, we went to one Comic-Con. And when I say we, I meant Eric was supposed to come, but couldn't make it at the last minute. So it was just me, the white guy, sweating my tuchus off, pitching it to people. But I think the cover kind of tells the story very well for us. It's that it's a comedy spoofing these things. And so the tricky kind of part is that a misconception might be that when you hear a title like White Savior, you kind of feel like you already know the book. And our book is just a kind of Blazing Saddles-esque spoof. It's just we take a very important issue like that, the white savior, narrative, and we kind of deconstruct it, but we do it, and we made sure to do it in a way that's just fun and entertaining. That was our number one goal. Let's make it fun and entertaining, and if we do that, the message is going to come across much better than going at it from the reverse and trying to just do the message and adding all the other stuff. And so our number one goal, fun and entertaining, and we hope that the message comes across through everybody enjoying the story, basically.
It makes sense. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No, I was saying when you asked about pitching it to Dark Horse, actually, it was actually out of the blue. I just sent it to an editor that I worked with a long time because I have a good relationship with Dark Horse as far as doing work with them, and I didn't really expect anything from it, but just having him read it, then it so for some reason got around to Mike Richardson and some of the other Dark Horse Entertainment guys. They loved it. They actually got back to us really quick and said, we think this has more potential than just a good story for comic books as well. So actually they really latched onto it pretty quick.
That's great.
Yeah, it was the next day that we got an email from somebody who was like, Mike read it and loved it. And it was literally the next day. Usually it'll be a couple weeks or something.
Right. If ever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was pretty neat.
So I want to ask the elephant in the room question, right? Obviously, we're living in a politically charged environment, and I think the title "White Savior" sort of by itself is a little bit, striking to some people. Were you concerned about the name when you came up with it? Did you consider other names that you might want to use to sort of soften the blow, or was it always going to be White Savior? And if a publisher wasn't happy with it, then you'd move on to the next one.
In my opinion, it was always going to be White Savior.
This is the one part where me and Eric, I am always nervous. I'm nervous about everything. Eric is fearless.
Yeah, I'm tired of. I mean, honestly, I just wanted to do and I wanted a book that actually stands out as well too. You don't go into a book and just try to straddle the fences. It just, I mean, I wanted something. If we're gonna go White Savior, we're gonna go White Savior. We got jokes in there. We got things in there that Scott would cringe at, but he threw it in there, and I read it, right? And I said, you know what, I can make this work as well. So and we do a lot of stuff that is, when you get to that point, you go, oh my gosh, okay, well, it's done with fun and comedy in mind.
Right. I want to follow up on the comedy piece in a second. I do want to talk about representation in comic books, whether that's representation in the creative teams or on the actual printed page. Do you see enough people who look like you when you're walking around the artist alley at a con, or when you're flipping through the pages of a comic book? How is representation from your perspective?
Having come from with the biggest names like Jim Lee and Jay Lee and stuff, I really didn't think it was, as far as talent goes, as far as creating comics, we actually have a lot of people who again, like I said, Jim Lee, there's Jay Lee, there's Dustin does fantastic work. Dustin Nguyen does fantastic work. And I really never thought of it in that way, in that terms where we were underrepresented as far as talent goes.
What about on the printed page?
Well, and on the printed page, yeah. To me, I really didn't pay attention until lately, where we have like movies like what's that movie that just
Shang-Chi?
Yeah, Shang-Chi, and we're actually it's told to us to pay attention through media, and so when you pay attention to that, you're like, oh yeah, that's true. And also when you watch like Iron Fist from Netflix, you're like, oh, okay, that's you know what, Iron Fist.
Missed an opportunity, didn't you, Marvel?
right, yeah. So really, I didn't really pay attention, but maybe Scott has a little bit more. He's more sensitive to it, or not. I'm not quite sure.
It is interesting. Of the two of us, I'm I kind of will throw out 7 different ideas to Eric. And some of them I'll be like, whoa, Eric, that I went too far on that. And Eric's like, no, we're going to go further. And I'm like, no, please back up. I don't want my name to be forever Googled with white savior. But but that being said, we were talking about the character of Todd Parker, the main character in our story. And we both like to think that Todd Parker has a lot of kind of both of us, but the major part about him is that he's an Asian guy, yes, but the fact that he's Asian is both obviously very important, but also not important at all.
Right.
He's literally just an everyman. His personality isn't defined by him being Asian. His personality is defined by who he is. And I know, like, when Eric's talking about his favorite characters in comics, he rarely talks about Asian characters, and he says, you were saying, Eric, like a lot of the ones you relate to aren't the ones who are necessarily whose personalities are based on them being Asian. You kind of like you were talking about Jimmy Woo, and how you like kind of a guy who's a secret agent first and who just happens to be Asian. And so I think that's kind of a really big thing that we were going for in the book, is that he's the everyman who just happens to be Asian in this particular case.
So I want to follow up on Todd Parker, because the book is really funny, and again, I want to get into the whole how do you write funny, but before we do, I have to ask the question. When I was reading the first issue, I thought, well, he really kind of reminds me of Peter Parker. Like, wait a minute, they've got the same last name. Was that intentional? Was intentional, or was it just okay?
So, you tell the story how the name came about.
So names, the names in our book, there's 2 ways we came about with the names. I hate coming up with character names, especially when we're brainstorming. I want to brainstorm as soon as possible when the idea hits. So I'll put in placeholder names, and I'll see the first person I'm talking to. Okay, that's the name I'll put in as a placeholder. In this case, it was my brother, Todd, who's nothing at all like this character. And so the name just kind of fit. And of course, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is the same kind of sense of humor. As our guy.
Well, that makes me feel better that it wasn't just me. So talk to me about a little bit about the creative process, because you're both writing. Eric, obviously, you're then focused on turning the words into something visual. But I also want you to talk about how you find the funny. Is that a concerted effort to say, I'm going to write something that's funny? Is it something that occurs to you and it just kind of comes out? Do you have a special process that you go through, whether it be on the serious or the action side or on the funny side? How does that work, and how does it work when there's 2 people who are doing the writing?
Okay, the way it seemed to work with us at the beginning, or now, is that Scott would throw out a lot of jokes, and we would already have somewhat of a plot. Like we've already had like a scenes and everything for each issue broken down, and so we're just trying to figure out what would be the funniest thing to do during those issues. And so we would come up with all different scenarios, all different practical jokes or jokes that make sense for us. And so when I'm reading the final script, or kind of like the Marvel type of breakdown,
like an outline with the Marvel method,
and so I would read it, then from the ideas that I can choose from for those pages, then then I would draw that. But then Scott would come back in and he will actually script it. Then that's how we make it work that way, because sometimes the jokes, we come back and forth with each other. Like, he'll see something I drew on a page, he'll ad lib on that, something, and there. So it works. And initially it was a little difficult, but then we'll get into that groove where I know what he's kind of going for. I will draw it, then he'll add to that, and then he'll add some more narrative to it, and it just worked. It's just, for me, then when I read it, it just makes me laugh again. So then I know it's kind of working. But yeah, comedy and comic books, I haven't really done so much, so it was a treat for me to do. Like, I've always done dark stuff and blood, guts, serious, mission accomplished type of books. But this one, it's not. It's more about the relationship and the banter between the supporting characters, and these guys listening to white savior
foolishly.
Yeah.
Right.
What?
I want to play a hypothetical game, and this is just about all the time we have. So I want to play and end on a high note. So let's play. A Hollywood producer calls you, has read White Savior, loves it, is going to buy the streaming rights to the series, and has given both of you creative freedom to choose the actors who you want to play the lead characters. Go cast your lead characters.
I like the guy from Walking Dead, Todd Parker.
Which guy from Walking Dead? Come on.
What's his name? Shoot.
There's 20,000 guys from Walking Dead.
The guy that got beat by Negan. What's his name?
Steve,
oh, you want Glenn?
Glenn. Yes.
Glenn, I think Glenn is perfect. One thing that we always say is right now it's written as Japanese. And so we have no idea what a producer is going to do with it. So I'm a little cautious sometimes about casting. But I think
I think this is a pretty low risk environment, Scott. So just go with it.
I think Terry Crews as Neil, Todd's friend, who will play more of a character in the following issues, I think would be a perfect person there.
Excellent. And I said it was the last question. I'm lying a little bit. You've got 4 issues in the initial arc. Is that right? Are you planning something else? Are you doing something else together? You're going to do a second arc? Don't know yet.
No,
all the above.
We have a couple ideas. We definitely have a second arc planned. We definitely want to do something in between this. We're hoping that it gets enough attention to potentially get us some other gigs in between. We've got a killer Deadpool idea between the two of us. And my dream book is, there was a DC character called the Heckler, and very little known character. And I think me and Eric updating it would be something the fans would like over here.
I actually have another book creatively that I'm working on as well, that Scott and I were again doing kind of like, but this is like a slower brew. We already have the title of this one, and it's about aliens, but it's good.
I don't suppose you want to tell us what the title is, do you?
Oh, it's already been seen, in the cover's already been seen, kind of like but it's called Red Rain.
Red Rain.
Yeah.
There you have it.
You want to give me a tagline?
We frack Mars, and now Mars comes back to frack us.
Yes.
That's the tagline. Okay.
I like that. Frack you. All right. So with that, we are out of time. Thank you, Eric and Scott. They are the creative team behind White Savior. The book is out on January 18th digitally, and of course at your local comic book shop. I'm Tom Smithyman with ComicCon.com, and I'll see you in the funny papers. Thanks a lot.